11 spine-chilling sleepover horror stories exposed, forbidden tales you must avoid. The night air was thick with anticipation, as Sarah's living room buzzed with laughter and the scent of cheesy pizza. It was a seemingly normal sleepover in their suburban Ohio neighborhood, but beneath the carefree banter lay an undercurrent of unease. The kind of tension you can almost touch. Outside, shadows loomed like secrets ready to unravel. Sarah, new to the block, seemed just like any girl, curious and eager to share a slice of familiarity. As midnight crept closer, someone suggested sharing local legends, a spark igniting wild enthusiasm. They formed a circle on the plush carpet, teasing and daring one another, their voices weaving tales of hauntings and abandoned places. Each legend was more outrageous than the last, stirring excitement, but the atmosphere shifted like dark clouds rolling in. Sarah sat a little straighter, her fingers trembling as she pulled out an old, frayed family photo. With a shaky breath, she unveiled the grim history of her family's connection to a beloved teacher who had vanished just 2 blocks away. Laughter faltered as the weight of her words sunk in. What kind of world were they dabbling in? But like a summer storm, light-heartedness returned, brushing off the unease. Just then, a deafening crash shattered their laughter, echoing from the backyard. The group pressed against the window, the flickering shadows growing eerie. A chill gust flowed through the room, snuffing the candles, washing them in darkness. Phones flickered into silence, batteries inexplicably dead, bearing the group to a thick blanket of dread. See, it was one thing to talk about legends, but another to feel the cold touch of reality. Outside, the familiar sounds of neighborhood life faded into ominous silence. Mr. Collins, their neighbor, paced along the yard's edge, his figure distorted by shadows. Unsure murmurs cascaded between the teens, memories of rumors about Mr. Collins creeping back to haunt them. Children disappearing. Were these mere whispers or a truth too dark to face? In a frantic race to distract themselves, they scrolled through Sarah's phone for photos, hoping to find comfort in memories. Their fingers froze over an image, Mr. Collins standing beside Sarah's parents. The smirk on his face felt like a gut punch. Panic exploded inside Sarah. "My parents, there's something you don't know," she stammered, her voice trembling. "They were involved in a cover-up about the teacher. I didn't want to believe it until now." Tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Another loud crash reverberated through the house, jolting their hearts. The front door creaked open, swinging as if beckoning them toward the unknown. Fear wrapped around them like a vice. Where was true danger lurking, inside the shadows of their minds or at the edge of Sarah's backyard? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the door grunted in protest, a fierce wind whipped through the room. They all braced themselves with nervous laughter, trying to convince themselves this was just another illusion, a spooky sleepover prank. But the wrongness of it all sat heavily. Shadows danced along the walls as they exchanged wild glances. The room seemed smaller, the walls inching closer. Their legs shook under the weight of suspicion. Whispers fluttered around the group as they imagined what was lurking beyond the door. What awaited them in the night? An unfathomable dread gnawed at their insides, and as they stood on the brink of a decision, a hiding place inside or a thrust into the unknown, they knew the real horror lay not just in legends, but in the secrets they'd yet to uncover. With every heartbeat, they sensed the darkness intensifying, threatening to swallow them whole. What were they willing to face as they ventured deeper into this unsettling night? A heavy silence enveloped the room, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves outside. Each breath felt labored as they gathered courage to make their next move. Sarah, anxiety etched on her face, rose slowly to her feet. I think we should go outside," she said, uncertainty lacing her voice. But the words hung in the air like an impossible challenge. Are you nuts? Jen exclaimed, eyes wide. What if it's him? What if he is out there? Who else could it be? Ethan whispered, backing up into the corner as if trying to escape an invisible threat. The pounding of their hearts thundered in their ears, drowning out the chilling breeze clawing at the window. Fear was pulsating, an ever-present companion in this oppressive darkness. Breaking the tension, Sarah's resolve hardened. Maybe we need to confront this. We can't live in fear of a legend forever. And, if Mr. Collins is involved, we need to know the truth. More hesitant murmurs erupted, but curiosity slowly began to flicker within their terrified souls. They all exchanged glances, a silent agreement forming in their wide, fear-stricken eyes. With every passing second, something primal pushed them closer to the edge of the unknown. Steeling herself, Sarah approached the door, its hinges groaning as she pulled it open. The chill outside engulfed her, biting at her skin, but she stepped through the threshold, her friends reluctantly following. The backyard enveloped them in shadows, the moonlight somehow more sinister against the looming trees. Stay close, Sarah's voice trembled, unsteady but determined. They crept forward, every sound magnified in the shrouded stillness of the night. A boxy shape loomed in the darkness ahead, their old treehouse, long abandoned and whispered about after the teacher's disappearance. Maybe we check there first? Ben suggested, his voice hardly a whisper, wavering under the weight of the night's tension. Yeah, great idea, Sarah replied, though her gaze flickered back to the house, the doors still yawning wide, a dark void inviting them back into safety. As they approached the treehouse, a heavy thud echoed from above, sending a shiver down their spines. Was someone up there? Did you hear that? Jen squeaked, gripping Sarah's arm. Maybe it's just an animal, Ethan suggested weakly, but Sarah could see the doubt in his eyes. Then let us go find out, she said, pushing herself beyond the edge of fear. The rickety ladder creaked ominously under their weight as they climbed, the wood groaning like a warning. When they reached the darkened entry, silence cloaked them. Peering inside, the darkness pulsed as if it were alive, waiting. Guys? Sarah's voice was barely a breath, trembling like a leaf caught in the wind. A sudden rustle crackled behind them, causing them to whirl around. Panic washed over their faces as they caught a glimpse of Mr. Collins lurking at the edge of the light, a shadow among shadows. His eyes glimmered like two dark stars in the night, an unsettling smile creeping across his face. What are you doing here, kids? He called out, his voice smooth yet laced with something sinister. Fear surged through them like ice water. They stumbled backward, retreating into the treehouse. But the door they had come through slapped shut, trapping them in their own nightmare. Let us get out. Now! Ben cried, scrambling for the window as the very air around them shifted, suddenly oppressive, but from outside, Collins's voice resonated through the darkness. You shouldn't have come looking for answers. Some secrets are better left buried. Their minds raced, frantic thoughts colliding with terror. What had they stumbled into? What did Mr. Collins know? What had been hidden all along? And then came a slow, deliberate knocking on the door of the treehouse, punctuating the dread in their hearts. The real horror was just beginning, and they were about to learn that some legends refused to stay buried in the dark. What would they uncover in the abyss of that treehouse, and who really lurked in the shadows of their neighborhood? The knocking persisted, each sound a heavy drumbeat against the fragile walls of the treehouse. They stood frozen, breaths quickened, hearts pounding like wild drums in their chests. The heavy scent of fear mixed with the dampness of the wood filled their lungs, making it harder to think. He's playing games, Ethan quivered, urging the others with a frantic shake of his head. Let's just call for help. Are you seriously going to shout for help? Jen shot back, panic igniting in her wide eyes. What if he comes in? What if he's already inside? Sarah's shaking hands gripped the splintered edge of the window, and she peered into the night, straining against the shadows. We can't stay here like this. We need to think, to figure out our next move. Think? Ben snapped, his voice climbing into an anxious pitch. We're trapped. We can't just sit here and wait for him to his voice broke, the weight of unsaid words hanging in the air. To do what? Sarah shot back, trying to maintain her composure. But behind her bravado, fear gnawed at her sanity. She could almost feel the eyes of Mr. Collins boring into her back, his presence chilling her more than the wind could. The knocking turned into a slow, methodical pounding, each strike making the wooden walls quiver. "Is there a way out?" Jen whispered, her voice almost a prayer. "Not unless we break a window," Ben muttered, glancing nervously at the darkened corners of the room. "But that won't stop him." "Maybe he just wants to scare us," Ethan said, more to comfort himself than anyone else. "We could ignore him." "Yeah, right." Jen interrupted. "Ignoring him will only make it worse. We need to get out." Her voice trailed off, eyes darting to the wall behind them. Suddenly, the pounding stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that felt heavy and charged. The moment stretched, thick as molasses. Shadows twisted along the walls, forming grotesque shapes. Time seemed to stand still until they caught the faintest whisper, a calling, or maybe it was a taunt. "Let me in." The soft voice lingered like smoke in the air, wrapping around them. "I've been waiting for you." Light flickered in Sarah's mind. The stories, the warnings, they echoed back like ghosts from her memories. What if the stories, the legends, they were true? "Shut up," Ben hissed, eyes wide, as if he feared just speaking the frightening theories would summon something darker. But the whispered invitation crept into their minds, igniting a firestorm of questions, fears, and a chilling sense of hopelessness. Why had Mr. Collins wanted them here? What secrets did he know? "Guys, we can't just stand around here," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "We need to confront him. We need to." A sudden crash cut through the darkness, reverberating in their bones. The wind howled outside, rattling branches against the walls, creating a cacophony of unearthly sounds. "Out the window!" Jen screamed, her instincts kicking in as she rushed to the opening and scrambled through. The others followed, hearts racing, but their frantic movements jerked to an abrupt halt as they stood outside, facing not just the woods but the menacing figure of Mr. Collins looming just at the base of the tree. "Thought you could leave so easily?" His voice was a deep, resonating growl. "I wouldn't run if I were you." Terrified, they turned to retreat into the forest, but the trees around them felt more suffocating than they had imagined. Were those branches reaching for them? Was it just their imagination? With a sense of mounting dread, they dashed into the darkness, but an unease clung to them like a heavy cloak. And then came that familiar voice again, echoing through the void as they fled. "You shouldn't have come looking. You will pay the price." As they hurried deeper into the trees, the path ahead twisted and warped like a nightmare. The line between escape and entrapment blurred, leaving them breathless and unsure. What haunted past were they now entangled in, and how far into the dark would they have to go to discover the real truth? Branches lashed at their faces, scratching skin and pulling at clothing as they ran. The underbrush crackled like bones beneath their hurried steps. Ethan stumbled, his foot catching on a twisted root, but strong hands from Jen and Sarah yanked him back up just in time. Their panicked breaths rose and fell in unison, a chorus of fear that echoed through the suffocating night. "Where do we go?" Ben gasped, his voice trembling as they skidded to a halt. Each direction seemed cloaked in darkness, shadows watching, waiting. The trees loomed taller, their dense canopies blocking out the moon, an oppressive veil that seeped dread into the air. "Just keep moving," Sarah urged, but her own voice wavered, uncertainty creeping into her bravado. What if running only led them deeper into Mr. Collins' wicked game? They pressed on, adrenaline fueling their flight, but ahead a glow. A flicker of light beyond the trees. Hope sparked in Sarah's chest. "There. We could find help. Or it could be a trap," Jen warned, her eyes darting back into the maze of looming trunks. "What if he's waiting for us there?" Another crash broke the short silence. Closer this time. Colin's voice cut through the air, sharp like glass. "You think you can hide forever?" The menace in his tone gave life to the shadows, animating them as if they breathed alongside him. the light seemed to pulse, beckoning them forward. With their hearts racing like freight trains, they sprinted toward it. As they emerged from the dense thicket, the scene before them was nothing short of surreal. An old lantern swung from a rusted iron hook, illuminating a small clearing that held an abandoned cabin, beams warped and splintered. The glow flickered, casting dancing shadows that twisted grotesquely on the cabin walls. This is where he brought us," Ethan stammered, scanning the eerily familiar structure. The dread settled heavier in their stomachs, memories of whispered tales flickering through their minds. "Don't you see?" Ben grimaced. "He's luring us in. Maybe it's our only chance to escape," Sarah proposed hesitantly, feeling the tug of safety against the tug of danger. They could fight their way through a door rather than leave nothing to chance in the woods. "We just need a moment to think. He won't expect us to go back." "No. We can't go in there," Jen pleaded, a shiver running down her spine. "It's a trap. You've seen the stories." A low chuckle slithered through the air. "Make your choice, little birds. The clock is ticking. Let us just peek inside," Sarah insisted, voice shaking as she stepped closer to the door. She reached out and pushed it open, the hinges creaking in a mournful tune. Darkness loomed inside, as thick as their fear. Cold air rushed out, wrapping around them like a warning. They hesitated at the threshold, hearts pounding like war drums, waiting for a sign to either turn back or step into the unknown. The hesitation was palpable, stretching on, until Ben growled, "We can't let him have the power over us. We go in together." As they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a finality that sent shivers racing down their spines. The lantern flickered wildly above, revealing the cabin's grotesque interior. Old family portraits lined the walls, but their faces were scratched out, grotesquely obscured, as if trying to escape from their eternal haunt. The air grew icy, shadows elongating, creeping toward them as if seeking to devour their light. "Did we make a mistake?" Ethan whispered, each word echoing the doubt that gnawed at their resolve. A low rumble began, shaking the floor beneath their feet, echoing the infernal laughter that seemed to come from all around. "Are you ready to know the truth?" Mr. Collins' voice reverberated as though conveyed by the walls themselves. And then, in a flash, the lantern extinguished, swallowing them in complete darkness. Before fear could seize them fully, a shrill scream pierced the silence, cutting through the shadowy void. The scream didn't belong to them. "Who's there?" Sarah shrieked, her voice slicing through the dark as she reached out blindly, heart racing, gasping for breath. "Find me before it's too late," cried a haunting voice, sounding so familiar yet utterly warped that in that moment, it became clear they weren't alone. What awaited them in the suffocating blackness of the cabin? Would its secrets break them, or could they find a way out before it was too late? The darkness seemed to pulse, alive with sinister intent. The air crackled like static electricity, filling their lungs with dread. Sarah could feel her heart pounding against her ribs, each beat a reminder of the unknown peril surrounding them. "Stay close," she gasped, desperate to cling to the warmth of her friends. But all she felt was a suffocating cold enveloping her, a deep chill that floated in the air like a ghostly breath. The shadows grew thicker, blurring the edges of the room, making it impossible to discern what lurked just beyond their reach. Who was that?" Jen's voice quivered, breaking the stillness. "What do they mean, find me?" "I don't know," Ethan said, his voice rising in panic. "But we can't just stand here." The cabin shook again, a deep groan echoing from its wooden bones. In that moment of uncertainty, moonlight flickered through a dirty window, outlining ghostly figures in its dim glow. Figures that shouldn't be there. Portraits that had seemed harmless now twisted into expressions of agony, as if the very walls were displaying the souls trapped within. "Did you see that?" Ben whispered, backing away, eyes wide. "What?" Sarah turned to look, but the sight was gone, swallowed by darkness. All that remained was the frayed whisper of spirits calling from every corner of the room. The walls shyly bent inwards, as if waiting for their next move. Maybe we should split up, find another way out, Ethan suggested, but regret filled his voice. Are you crazy? Jen exclaimed, tears pooling in her eyes. We need to stick together. If we split, we stand no chance. Listen. Ben hissed, holding up his flashlight. There's something over there. They turned towards the far corner of the small cabin. A soft silhouette shifted within, dimly lit by the beam of the flashlight. It was a girl, her clothes tattered and her eyes wide with fear. Help me, she begged, her voice barely a whisper, a sound so fragile it threatened to shatter in the heaviness of the room. Who are you? Sarah dared to ask, unsure if she wanted to know. The girl extended a trembling hand. You have to hurry. He's coming back. It's all a game. As she stepped forward, the faint light from the lantern flickered back to life, casting a pale glow on the girl's terrified features. Moments passed like hours, tension wrapping around them tighter than a vice. I think I recognize her, Ethan blurted, shock painting his face. That's Marissa, from school. She went missing last year. Panic surged through them like wildfire. Why was she here? What happened to her? And if they were to help her, what would that mean for their own survival? Marissa, what happened? Jen called, her voice tremulous, but just as Marissa opened her mouth to speak, the cabin trembled violently, wood creaking beneath the straining pressure of unseen forces. The door banged, rattling with unnatural vigor. Foolish children. Mr. Collins' voice bellowed from the shadows, reverberating with malice. You think you can escape me? This is just the beginning. With that, the lantern flickered ominously and then exploded, shards of glass raining down like icy daggers. The light gone, they were plunged back into the oppressive darkness. Run! Sarah screamed, instinct overriding caution as every instinct screamed at them to flee. But it was impossible to tell which way to go as the whole cabin twisted, the walls groaning with life. Terror-stricken, they raced toward what they thought might be an exit. But every step felt like running deeper into an inescapable labyrinth of horror. Amid the dark whispers and howling winds that began to swirl around them, a whispered plea echoed within, help me find the truth. Could they uncover what really happened to Marissa? Or would they become another part of Mr. Collins' deadly game? The darkness pressed in from all sides, suffocating and relentless. Silence reigned, yet shadows danced, twisting and turning, mocking their very existence with the promise of danger. Sarah's nerves screamed, her heart raced so violently it felt like it might burst. She could hardly breathe. Where do we go? Ben's voice cracked, panic inching into every syllable. Fear was infectious, spiraling through the small group like a deadly virus. The air was thick, clinging to their skin like a wet blanket. Follow my voice. Sarah shouted, still clutching Jen's hand, feeling the warmth of her body slip in and out like a fading memory. We can't stop now. Wait. Marissa's frail voice broke through the suffocating dark, but it sounded so far away, distorted by the chaos. We need to find the truth before it's too late. What do you mean? Ethan called into the palpable void, his voice punctuated with terror. He turned his flashlight toward her, but it flickered weakly, dimming with each beat of his heart. Marissa's form trembled as if she could barely stand. The game, it's not just about surviving, you have to understand what happened to me. He keeps cycling through, and we're trapped. Jen gasped. Mr. Collins. He's toying with us. He wants to see if we'll unravel the secrets or succumb to fear. Marissa's eyes darted, wide and wild. It all connects, the spirits, the portraits, the truth is in the house. The words felt like cold fingers gripping Sarah's spine. Chills raced through her as the name echoed in her mind. She couldn't help but remember the stories. Mr. Collins had a reputation. Even the bravest had turned pale when whispering his name. Can't we leave? We need to, Ben began, but a low growl interrupted him, reverberating through the very foundation of the cabin. It felt as though the house were breathing, angry and alive. "We can't." Marissa shrieked, "You'll only lead him to us." The walls shuddered, a cacophony of grinding wood and splintering pane. The cabin's very bones seemed to shift, the room twisting, transforming into a nightmarish funhouse of angles that defied reality. Shadows slithered through the corners, whispering secrets, taunting them, almost daring them to flee. "Run!" shouted Sarah, her voice strained. They dashed into the darkness, each step a gamble. Where was the door? The windows? The confines felt like they were closing in, suffocating them. Light flickered back to life, a low glow illuminating a mural on the far wall. The faces twisted in anguish, mouths open in eternal screams. For a fleeting moment, Sarah saw something, an outline of a door behind the mural that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Over there!" she cried, her footsteps echoing against the wooden floor. As they neared, Marissa's voice rang louder. "You must find the key that lies below. It will reveal everything." Ben stopped abruptly, his face a mask of fear and disbelief. "What key? Where?" "Under the floorboards," she urged, then glanced back, her eyes darkening with dread. But their moment of hope turned to pure horror as a shadow lunged at them from the corner, a monstrous entity with eyes burning like two coals of hellfire. "Get down!" Sarah shouted, pushing Jen out of the way just as the shadow lashed out, barely missing her. They stumbled back, hearts racing, a wheel of despair spinning faster and faster. What was happening? Where was that key? With no choice left, they turned to each other, fear igniting new resolve. They had to expose the truth. The darkness surged forward, and with it, they plunged deeper into the maze, frantic whispers echoing their fates. "Help me find the truth," Marissa cried out again, desperation woven into every word, and in that moment, the true horror began to unfold, a revelation shadowed by darkness. What if the truth wasn't just about Marissa? What if it was something much worse? The cabin echoed with their racing hearts, and the chilling realization hit hard. What if they weren't the hunters but the hunted? Would they find the key before it sealed their fates, or would they too become part of the twisted game? They stumbled through the dark, panic clawing at their throats. The growl from earlier lingered, a haunting reminder of their imminent danger. Shadows flickered, their edges sharp as ice, threatening to swallow them whole. Sarah led the group, gripping Jen's hand tightly, stealing strength from her warmth as they rushed deeper into the void. "Marissa!" Ben shouted, voice cracking. "What's the plan? You mentioned a key." Marissa's eyes darted, scanning the twisting walls around them. "It's under the floor, but we need to keep moving." "He's coming." Ethan, panting heavily, strained to shine the flashlight down the hall. The beam barely cut through the darkness, revealing twisted wood and peeling wallpaper that seemed to writhe like snakes. "We can't outrun him. We're trapped." "Shut up!" Sarah shouted, the weight of their fear barbed at her reason. They needed hope, not despair. "If Marissa says the key is below, we need to find a way there." Suddenly, the door they had come through slammed shut with a deafening bang. The walls vibrated, and a torrent of whispers poured from the corners, deep voices murmuring nonsense that felt like it was seeping into their minds. "Ben, help me!" Jen screamed, pointing at a section of the floor that had a slight gap, as if something was hidden beneath it. But before they could react, a figure emerged, a tall silhouette, its presence freezing the air around them. Mr. Collins, face obscured, eyes smoldering with malice. "Trying to escape?" he crooned, voice slithering like smoke, chilling them to the bone. "You must learn the truth, it's the only way. Get back!" Sarah shouted, shoving Jen behind her. The words he spoke felt like a curse, tightening around their throats. Marissa took a shuddering breath. "We need to find the key," she urged. She fell to her knees, fingers fumbling at the floorboards. With trembling hands, she traced their edges, heart racing, every shadow feeling like a menacing hand reaching for her. Sarah wanted to help, but fear rooted her in place, eyes locked on Collins. His eerie smile split his face, revealing teeth too sharp, too white for the darkness swirling around him. Such delightful ignorance, he mocked, stepping closer. Do you not see? You are mere players in my game. Find the key, or suffer the consequences. Marissa, hurry. Jen urged, her voice a mixture of terror and pleading. With a sudden crack, one of the floorboards splintered under Marissa's frantic hands, a foul stench wafting up, twisting their stomachs. There, glinting faintly in the beam of their dying flashlight, was a rusted key, its form grotesque and menacing. I found it. Marissa yelled, her face lighting up with wild hope as she grasped it tightly. But that light was a fleeting spark. The key had barely touched her palm when the growl echoed again, louder, closer, vibrating through the very wood of the cabin. Ben glanced at the door. Was there time to escape? What do we do with it? He asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Use it. Unlock whatever it needs to unlock. Marissa cried, a thread of confidence igniting amidst their chaos. Another rumble came as Collins closed in, tension swelling in the air, making it hard to breathe. You think a trinket will save you? He taunted, the shadows around him writhing like hungry serpents, waiting for their moment. As Marissa advanced, key poised in her trembling hand, reality shifted. The shadows expanded, crawling across the walls, lunging closer. Please. Jen begged, voice quaking, let us get out of here. But time stretched thin. Fear clawed at their sanity. They had to act. Would the key unlock freedom or unleash something more horrible than their minds could fathom? The air crackled with tension, and in that chilling moment, Sarah realized too late some truths are best left buried. As they huddled together, breaths shallow and hearts racing, the door behind them thumped open, revealing a blinding maelstrom of darkness swirling beyond. What lay ahead was shrouded in mystery, but one thing was certain, escape was no longer guaranteed. Would they find safety, or was the house preparing for its next act in its insidious game? Marissa's heart pounded wildly as she gripped the key, its cold surface biting into her palm. I have to unlock something. Do it. Ben urged, panic seeping into his voice. The shadows in the room thickened, a living entity coiling around them, ready to pounce. Where? What do I unlock? She gasped, scanning the room, desperation heavy in the air. Mr. Collins stepped closer, his eyes narrowing, revealing an unsettling glint. Do you really think you can hide from the truth? He sneered, the malice in his voice wrapping around them, chilling any flicker of courage. Get away from us. Sarah yelled, her voice shaking but defiant. The fear surged in her chest like a wave, but she pushed it deep down. They couldn't let him break them. Marissa's fevered gaze landed on an old chest, half hidden in the shadows. The metal hinges were rusted shut, almost fused together with time. There. Maybe it's that. Go. Jen shouted, urging her on. Marissa dashed toward the chest, the fluorescent beam from Ethan's flashlight jerking with her every frantic step. But the shadows shrieked and lunged, almost slapping at her heels, clawing at her with frigid fingers. With a clang, Marissa fell to her knees and shoved the key into the lock. It felt too heavy, almost alive, the weight of generations pressing down upon her. Come on, come on. Ben cried, his voice trembling as he glanced nervously towards Collins, who lingered just behind them, an eerie predator relishing the chase. With a deep breath, Marissa twisted the key. It clicked, then groaned as if awakening from a forgotten slumber. The chest's lid creaked open reluctantly, hiding something shrouded in cloth, but as Marissa pulled away the fabric, a sickening whiff of decay clawed its way up their nostrils. They all recoiled, a collective shudder rippling through their group. Whatever lay within was ancient and far from innocent. Inside, a small leather-bound book rested, oozing with foreboding. This feels wrong," she muttered, her fingers trembling near the edge, almost afraid to touch it. "Don't read it," Sarah shouted, panic spilling over. "It could be a trap." Mr. Collins laughed softly, an unsettling sound that echoed throughout the room. You're wise to be cautious. Some stories are better left untold. But it's too late now. Marissa hesitated, fear gripping her heart tightly. What's in it? She muttered, voice barely a whisper. Unlock it. Jen urged, her eyes darting between the chest and Collins, dread blooming like a dark flower in her gut. We need to know. The decision loomed ominously, revealing the contents might either bring them salvation or imprison them in shadows forever. The growl echoed again, deep and resonant, pulling at the fabric of their sanity as if it was a living thing. Marissa, Ben said, his voice holding a trembling note. Whatever is in there might be our only chance. She nodded, swallowing hard as she reached for the book. Even that simple motion felt like stepping off a cliff. As her fingers brushed against the cover, heat flared around her, a wrathful warmth that contrasted with the suffocating chill of the room, but she couldn't shake the nameless dread either. Something within it was waiting to be unleashed. No! Collins shrieked, fury distorting his features. You should have left it alone. Just as Marissa opened the book, a blinding flash erupted, consuming the room in a seething fog of darkness. For an instant, everything went silent, their breaths halted in unison, the shadows receding as if caught by surprise. But just as quickly, the growl transformed into a sinister, hungry laughter that echoed off the walls, rising into a terrifying crescendo. The air thickened, wrapping around them like a tightening noose. Run! Sarah screamed, the sound of their own dread blending with the depths of the night. As they fled, the shadows exploded with life, grasping for them, their fingers brushing against cold skin. Would the truth that lay beneath the pages save them or condemn them to a nightmare from which they could never wake? A scream punctuated the air, sharp and raw. Whose voice was it? They could only hope it wouldn't be the last sound they ever heard. What truth would they face next, and would they emerge whole? Light vanished into inky blackness as Marissa opened the book, the ancient pages glowing a deep crimson. The words, their letters twisted, like crawling worms, leapt off the pages, swirling in midair around them. Panic drove them, their bodies entwined with the malevolent energy as the very fabric of reality wavered. Get it closed! Ben yelled, reaching for the tome, but the shadows formed a whip-like barrier, lashing out at him. He stumbled back, frantically reeling away from their grasp. Don't touch it! Sarah shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. The laughter returned, sharper and more authoritative this time, mocking their terror, rattling their bones to the marrow. The shadows pressed closer, solidifying into grasping hands lurking in the corners of every eye. Each heartbeat echoed in silence, a countdown to doom. Marissa! You have to close it. Jen's eyes were wide, her breath shallow, words barely escaping her mouth. Marissa trembled, the heat radiating from the book warming her palms, urging her to dive deeper into its secrets. She fought it, every instinct screaming to shut it, yet her curiosity burned brighter than the chill of fear gnawing at her heart. Listen to me. Mr. Collins interjected, no longer the silent observer but ensnared by his own growing excitement. That book holds the very essence of truth. Open it and you can see the world like it really is. No, Marissa whispered, her gaze flitting from Collins back to the glowing pages. No, I can't, we can't. But the things in the darkness stirred, peeling back layers of her mind, whispering promises of power and understanding. The shadows thickened, absorbing the whispers of doubt, demanding she delve into the horrific archive of forgotten knowledge. Marissa! This is not worth it. Ben's hands gripped her shoulders, grounding her in reality. I won't let you. With a swift motion, she slammed the book shut, the echo reverberating like a gunshot. The shadows recoiled, hissing like steam escaping a kettle, their grasp retreating but not gone. Light! Jen shouted, scrambling for the flashlight, illuminating the room with a harsh beam. The glowing filaments of darkness melted back into the corners, but Collins darted forward, a primal desperation in his eyes. You don't understand. You've released it. You have to finish it or it consumes everyone. Dread twisted in Marissa's stomach. What do you mean? Every soul here, it feeds off fear. You either face it or it will take everything from you. Collins called out, his demeanor shifting from predator to pleading victim. The flickering light danced wildly, casting twisted shapes on the wall's figures that advanced, faces lost in torment, their unearthly cries rising in anguish. Marissa's heart hammered against her ribcage, sweat clung to her brow like ice. Then what do we do? Sarah shouted, looking at each of them with wide, terrified eyes. The rapid breaths of her friends ached in the thickening air. In that moment, the ground trembled as the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. Frantic thoughts raced through Marissa's mind. Maybe we can summon whatever is in the book. She said, though the thought unsettled her. If it feeds on fear, can't we turn it against itself? With determined resolve, they gathered, hands joined, channeling every smudge of bravery against the encroaching shadows, their collective fears surfacing in raw honesty. Yet, as they spoke the words from the book aloud, a chill slithered through the room. Stop! Jen screamed, eyes darting toward the rapidly darkening corners. What if it backfires? The shadows roared as if mocking their efforts, growing dense and much colder. Too late. The shadows of your souls don't belong to you anymore, Mr. Collins growled, revealing twisted edges of malice in his eyes, a man possessed by his own demons. Marissa felt the growing pressure of the unseen storm threatening to swallow them whole. The air electrified, posturing before the inevitable clash of fate and fear. As they fought to summon the courage that flickered, Marissa had to wonder, was there a way back? Or had they plunged too deep into the abyss? In the suffocating darkness, with the truth closing in around them, they had only one chance, but would their attempt to wrest control from the shadows seal their fate? As the darkness spun ever tighter, Marissa's voice quivered in the storm, what if we fail? The shadows twisted angrily around them, growing more vivid, more chaotic, as if mocking their very existence. Marissa could feel the weight of it pressing on her chest, stifling her breath. The presence of Mr. Collins loomed larger than life, his smirk twisting into something more sinister. You think you can control what you have released? It feeds on your fear, your uncertainty. And you so willingly serve it. Screams echoed endlessly, drowning in the chaos. We have to do this. Ben cried, his voice raw with dread. We can't give in. The group pressed their hands tighter, creating a circle, defiance flickering within them like a stubborn candle in a storm. Marissa, speak the words again. Sarah urged, her face pale but determined. Even if we're afraid, we have to try. Okay, Marissa whispered, her heart racing, rallying her thoughts. She felt the book's pulse in her memories, a dance with the secrets of the past. We must confront the fear, not run from it. With trembling hands, she opened the tome again. The sizzling pulse of shadows surged toward them, hungry and eager, but the light from their flashlights glinted defiantly against the encroaching darkness. I face the truth of those lost. I command the shadows to release what they claim. The floor shuddered, wood creaking under the weight of their will. The shadows shrieked, wiggling from their hold as if recoiling from the power of her voice. Yes. That's it. Ethan shouted, his eyes wide, hope shining through the horror. They're losing ground, don't stop. Marissa felt the shapes curl back, retreating in agony. She continued, we're not afraid of your stories, we uncover them. You don't own us. The light within the cabin flickered brighter, illuminating faces twisted with long-buried anguish, resonating their truths in the air. The forward motion propelled their fear into something tangible, shifting the tide. The cries of trapped spirits transformed, rising from whispers to voices. Help us, they echoed. Face us, Marissa pressed on, feeling a warmth enveloping her friends. I command the shadows to set the lost free. Outside their circle, the whirlwind of darkness began to unravel, tendrils shriveling back. Sarah held Jen's hand tighter, heart racing in sync with Marissa's voice. Ben dropped his flashlight, its dying light illuminating swirling dust and ethereal figures in grief. "Come with us." He called to the shadows, they flickered uncertainly. "You are not forgotten." Then, against the reaping darkness, a fissure cracked open in the very fabric of night. A door formed before their eyes, gleaming silver, pulsing as if beckoning. An exit? An escape? "Go!" Marissa shouted, her voice hardening with resolve. But Collins shrieked, fury spilling from him in waves, growing taller, filling the room with a feverish rage. "You cannot leave. You belong to me." But the door loomed larger, radiating warmth, pulling them closer, promising safety. Instinct kicked in, an unyielding force. "Run!" urged Jen, and they surged toward it, the reality behind them starting to blur. Marissa grabbed the hands of her friends, together. They collided through the portal, the sensation of slipping into safety bursting through them as bright light engulfed everything. Suddenly, silence overwhelmed them. The cabin blurred into nothingness, the shadows, the dread, the specter of Mr. Collins, and they found themselves tumbling onto the soft grass of the backyard, the moon shining high over them, illuminating their shocked faces. They gasped, a cacophony of relief swirling through the stillness of the night. "We did it!" shouted Ben, the truth punching through the remnants of fear. Marissa sank to her knees, breaths ragged, the weight of what they had faced surging through her. "We faced him. We uncovered what was hidden, the truth." It washed over them, silencing the echoes of agony that lingered in their minds. The weight of collective shadows grew lighter, and in their victory, a sharp chill remained, a reminder of how close they had come. The neighborhood sprawled around them, unknowingly untouched by the terror that had consumed them only moments before. "Let us go home," Sarah breathed, the adrenaline fading, replaced by relief. "Yeah," echoed Ethan, wiping sweat from his brow, his eyes scanning the dark trees with respect. "Let us never do that again." As they gathered themselves, they felt an unparalleled bond, greater than any fear, forged in the fires of survival. Together, they deconquered darkness, together, they held a piece of a haunting tale, a story warning against the shadows that dared to claim them. One last glance at the tree line brought forth a shiver, a reminder, but they walked forward, hearts unified, leaving behind the haunted remnants of a night cloaked in terror but stained by undeniable courage. They would carry the truth with them, flaring like a light against the darkness. They had won this battle, and as they vanished into the comforting embrace of safety, they vowed never to forget. Every whispered secret and shadow spun a story, but this was their tale and it wasn't over yet. If you've enjoyed this spine-chilling saga, you need to subscribe now to keep up with more exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters, it's the fuel that keeps this channel spinning. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions. I'd love to hear what theories you have about what really went down tonight, and if you know friends who need to see this conclusion, don't wait even one more second to share this video. Real fans like you understand how important it is to support the channel in every way. Your actions make all the difference.